Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. We're going to start off with a map looking at the last 7 days of total accumulated precipitation across the country, and there's a couple of very important things I want you to see in this map. First of all, we did see quite a bit of snow coming into the west, especially into California, some rain in the Central Valley. And the system that kind of dove through here eventually ejected into the northern plains and produced a large blizzard here. We also had some snow that came down into parts of Montana out of this as well, and some decent precipitation to the upper Midwest. Now, take note of this large area here that's to the west. That region has missed out on several of these past systems, and one of the reasons why we see very dry conditions still in the hard red winter wheat belt. Now, our main story over in the east was Nicole. So Nicole came in, and then eventually the moisture from Nicole just continued to spread on up to parts of New England. And we saw across parts of the state some very heavy rainfall. One of the comments I made last week about what became of the moisture of Nicole was that earlier indications were wetter east, and then it got much wetter to the west as time went on. So we saw our heaviest precipitation totals, some places accumulating over 6 inches of liquid equivalent here in the Appalachian Mountains. So very, very heavy rainfall with this particular system. But with that this map in the back of our minds here, I want to show you the soil moisture values before all of that took place. So this was back on November the 7th, a week ago. And what we're going to do here is we're going to show you the latest data, which is this. So some of the biggest improvements were along the East Coast where Nicole went through. This is the November 7th data, 40 centimeter or 16-inch soil moisture, and here's the latest. Now, when you look at this, there was some drought reduction that happened, but the latest drought monitor, which came out last Thursday, still shows us about 85% of the country in some form of drought, from abnormally dry, that's D0 drought, all the way up to stage D4, which would be the exceptional drought. I just want to take note here of what's going on in parts of the plains where the lingering, long-standing drought still sits. Okay, one other thing to comment on since we're taking a look at this kind of national picture here is, of course, we've been talking a lot about the Mississippi River. I'll take you over to the AHPS website. We're going to look at the USGS river gauges again. And I like to just keep kind of focusing in on one. That would be the Mississippi River at Memphis. Now, as of today, it's still about 11 feet below its low level, but you can see some of the moisture from this past a couple of weeks is making it through the reservoirs, through the soil into the river system, the tributaries, and getting there into the river. And that's why we expect by Monday the river to only be about 6 feet below low stage. So it's important to see some of the recovery that will be happening here, but this is going to still take several more weeks to return the Mississippi back to its normal water levels. Now, of course, the biggest changes we saw as of late has been the really cold air, and even this morning we're watching for another big push of colder air that's coming in here out of from our west. And this is just the last 24 hours how much the temperature has changed. And we're going to be sitting in some cold air for quite some time here. Now, just to show you the source of this and where it's going to be coming from, this was just the current temperatures this morning about 8:30 a.m. I'm way over here in Spokane, Washington, so it's quite early where I am, but this is 8:30 Central Time. I just want you to take note of how cold the air is in parts of the plains. And we're going to watch here in a few moments how a big dome of high pressure is going to slide through here. It's all a part of this blocked up pattern we're currently sitting in right now, at least through Thanksgiving. And we're going to have to see how that continues to deliver quite a bit of colder air for us. So here it is. This is just a view, and if you get yourself oriented, there's Alaska. So here's the Canadian archipelago and Greenland. You are way down here. This is the jet stream level winds by the time we get toward the end of this week. And what I want you to take note of here is this large blocking ridge that's moving over Alaska, then diving across the United States around a deep Hudson low. It then moves across the open Atlantic and then builds into another ridge here over Scandinavia. So what we've got here is this kind of cross-polar ridge that's forced a bunch of cold air to come out just like this. And that's what happens when you squeeze into the North Pole like this. The result is cold air goes on both sides. So it's in Russia right now, and it is here in the eastern half, or actually most of North America, with the exception being parts of this side of Canada and into Alaska. So keep that in mind as we walk through where this pattern is going to go, because at least through the end of this week and the start of next week, it's going to look like what you see here. Now, the top thing that I'm interested in, because we've been forecasting this now for about 10 days to evolve like this, the top thing I'm interested in is what's happening right over here. You see, coming off of Japan out into the Pacific, we're starting to see the hints of a pattern change that likely won't get to the United States until we get into Thanksgiving. Well, what that's going to do is that's going to return us to a pattern we saw at the beginning of the month of November, not the pattern we're currently in right now, really the end of October and beginning of November. So we're going to come back to that in just a few seconds. But this block typically lasts about 10 days. We're going to watch for it to get out of here, like I said, about Thanksgiving. So in the meantime, we do have quite a bit of interesting weather to be covering. And a lot of it, though, is happening outside of North Carolina. Let me show what I'm talking about. Down here this morning, we do have this winter storm that's moving through the panhandles, hitting parts of Oklahoma and Kansas. It's going to spread into Missouri. Might be some stronger storms tonight, eastern Texas, and then over the lower Mississippi River Basin. This one will spread snow over my home state of Illinois. And when does it start to get toward us? Well, it won't be until Tuesday midday that we start to see the moisture getting over the Appalachian Mountains. Some scattered rain out ahead of it, but not much. So this will push through us by the time we get in Tuesday afternoon and evening, and then press our way through Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. So that's it. That's your main precipitation event this week. We'll take a look at the totals in just a few moments. Now behind that, another shot of very cold air is on its way, and you can even see the lake effect. Snow on the backside. You saw the ice moving north into New England and the heavy snows that are going on there. But to show you where this goes from this point, I want to take you over to the European model. So we've already seen that first system. That's when it delivers the rain to us. Maybe some embedded thunderstorms in this. I got to keep a close eye on that for middle of this week. But it clears out. So here we are through Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We can just keep going out here. That's kind of our last big chance at precipitation all the way through the next 10 days. I just played it all the way out there for you. So what we're going to be dealing with here is shot of rain on Tuesday into early Wednesday. Then after that, we're going to be going over drier and colder again with this pattern. Now, what's most important about this map is what we saw at the very end. We're starting to see the return next Wednesday, day before Thanksgiving, of better moisture coming into the west. And I got to keep a close eye on that. But I would like to use the European model to kind of total up what we're expecting. So if I just play this again, there's Tuesday morning, Tuesday midday, Tuesday evening, getting into Wednesday morning. That gives us the total amount of precipitation from the European at this point. So we'll be a bit more scattered here in the east, maybe some places picking up between 0.2 and 0.7 inches of rain, but it could be heavier as you go farther west over the Appalachian Mountains, with possibly some places picking up well over an inch of total precipitation. Okay, from here, take a look at these two maps. This is the week 1 precipitation anomaly map from the European model, so it gets us out to the 20th, and there's all of week 2. Now, remember, we said that our chances for precip were relatively low, and we just don't see after this first system comes through, the one that does this, that's our best chance at rain here Tuesday, Wednesday. We go over drier after that. But into week 2, see this wetter anomaly in the northwest indicates the flow is going to start to come back through the country. That's going to start to change things up a bit. We need to have a quick discussion about that. First of all, I want to show it to you in terms of the jet stream level winds, because right now the jet stream's coming off of Japan and then breaking up into this huge ridge. There it is. And there's the deep trough that dives over us and gives us all the cold air by the end of this week. Now, if I just play this forward through this weekend, getting out there into early next week, that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That ridge is busted through according to the European model. And what ends up happening is we start to extend more of these winds from the Himalayas coming off of China, Japan. They tend to make their way more easily across the United States. And what that does is that eliminates the big ridge here, the deep trough there, and starts to break the pattern up. But it's still several days out for us, at least a week to 10 days before we get the full effect of this pattern change. So this is what we're dealing with before then with the temperatures. It is cold. So here's Monday's highs, getting into Tuesday, very cold. That's when that front finally passes over, so high of 38 in Raleigh. This is now getting into Wednesday, a little bit more warmer on Wednesday, but there's look at that. That's the reinforcing shot. Thursday, it starts to move east by Friday, gets over toward us by Saturday and into Sunday. We just got a cold week coming up here across much of the eastern side of the United States. Now, on the low temperature side, we had frost out, getting pretty far close to the East Coast today. Take a look. This is now Tuesday morning's lows, a bit warmer. There's Wednesday, a bit warmer. But as we get toward Thursday into Friday, look at that. Friday, we might push that frost line almost clear to the shore here. So we'll need to be watching for that carefully. This is then getting into Saturday and Sunday. We keep that colder air around. Now, I told you that after Thanksgiving, we're looking at a bit of a shift. So November 19th to the 23rd, we keep the cold anomalies around. But look at things starting to move around November 24th to the 28th. That's when the pattern starts to evolve. And the source of that is really actually starting with La Nina. Even though there's a big blocking ridge in Alaska and another one here over Scandinavia, and they kind of link over the North Pole, the more dominant teleconnection right now is still La Nina. And I show this to you all the time. I feel a bit like a broken record. These blue-greens represent strong trades. The reds represent strong westerly winds, and they're meeting right here around phase 6 of the MJO. Now, until this La Nina lets go, we'll keep seeing a map like this. This is what La Ninas do this time of year. And so what that does is if it puts the MJO right here into phase 6, see where the forecast is taking it? Historically, that brings about troughs here. Remember me showing you that at the beginning? Then that results in another trough that's just south of the Gulf of Alaska. And then there's a ridge that sometimes sits here but moves back and forth across this region from the south over to the southeast. So what does all that translate into? Well, we can look at this a couple different ways. Last Friday, NOAA released its new week 3, week 4 forecast, which starts just after Thanksgiving and goes through the first 9 days of December. And now you see it, right? There's more onshore flow in the west, colder conditions west and north, mild where that ridge could sit between Texas and the Carolinas. But because of that, because the flow is coming in, oops, let's try that again. Because the flow is coming in like this, we can get ridging in our area, which tends to be a bit, well, warmer, but also drier. Now, the European model sees the same thing. This is what their forecast is. I'm going to take it even farther. This is the 25th of November through the 25th of December. So this gets us up to Christmas. You see some similarities, right? The wetter conditions here, but if there are drier conditions, it's going to be across the south into the southeast and mid-Atlantic. Now, I'm just going to put a qualifier on there. It just said drier, not dry, but drier. Fewer big systems rolling through to deliver heavy precipitation. Now, if that gets us to Christmas, the big question is, where does this all go after that? And I'm going to spend just a few moments talking about it. I'll give you stuff on South America, and I'll wrap it up. We did have released the newest official NOAA forecast for ENSO, which is El Nino in the Southern Oscillation. So the blue bars represent the probability of having La Nina, the gray neutral conditions, which means neither El Nino or La Nina, and then red is El Nino. Now take a look at this. We see by next summer that the probability of having an El Nino has been increasing with time. It's almost up to 40%. We want to be careful when using this figure. It's based on ocean temperatures, right out here in the Central Pacific. Now, I want to tell you something about ocean temperatures. I've said it before. They are the symptom of the flow of the atmosphere. They take a long time to change. So the atmosphere can change, and the ocean lags in its change. In fact, it takes 5 times the amount of heat to change the temperature of the ocean, 5 times the amount of energy to change the temperature of water than it does soil. So water has high thermal inertia and takes a long time to change. So why I'm saying that is you have to be very careful with this. I heard last week a lot of folks saying there's a 75% chance that we have La Nina through winter, December, January, February. Okay, we could see cooler ocean temperatures there, but is the atmosphere behaving like a La Nina? And I don't think that it will be. I think that we're going to get rid of the La Nina influence, letting some subseasonal factors take over. But I have a major caveat to that. I'm going to explain that to you in just a few seconds. So what am I talking about? Well, I've already seen many indications that this La Nina is starting to let go. For one, major buildup in atmospheric momentum centered right over the equator. And the buildup you see here is deep in the stratosphere. It's up high. And that is a typical precursor to the end of a La Nina. We know that the long-range models have slowly begun to respond to that. By January, February, and March, they're starting to break down the risk of all of this drier air south of this line, pushing it farther to the south and making it less dry. You see, on a typical La Nina, you can just divide the country like that. And generally speaking, south of it, you're drier, north of it, you're wetter. There's an exception to the Ohio River Valley right in through here. But I think that we're getting fooled a bit here by how dry this may look. I think that this La Nina is going to be letting go sooner, and that's going to give us 2 components to the jet stream. One that comes in like this, and a subtropical jet that at times can come in like this. Now, I want to give you a bit of additional information on this. You see, when you come back to those ocean temperature patterns, you're going to notice that there's quite a bit of warm water building here. And around it, some cooler water's begun to emerge. It starts here in Alaska, and then it kind of just moves right around like this. Now, that cool kind of reverse C shape you see there is part of something called the negative phase of the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. That's where we got a lot of warm water here and cool water that surrounds it. Now, it's a decadal oscillation. So if I take you all the way back to the 1850s, you can see that's gone through cold phases and warm phases, cold and warm. And we're currently, look at this, in a cold phase. All right. Now, if it stays there, we know a thing or two looking historically at what this might mean. So if you correlate January to March, PDO, with precipitation, these blues that you see here, okay, are not dry. It's a negative correlation. We currently have a negative PDO, which means this is wet. It tends to be drier here. Now you look at this and say, well, I see drier conditions up the coast. I understand that, but I still think you're going to see an active storm track through here, which is going to pull systems through, delivering better moisture. The other side of this is, if we look, let's shrink that up for you. If we look at what the jet stream typically does when there's a negative PDO, it tends to run over a ridge like this, dive into a trough there, and then run out like this. Now, I want you to understand that the PDO's influence on our pattern is not, it's not set in concrete. I made a case in previous videos that I'm worried that the North Atlantic may see bigger ridges of blocking high pressure. And what that does is that lets this cold air make it farther to the east, sending us into major kind of almost like shockwave-like events with very cold outbreaks in the middle of this winter. I'm just concerned that that's going to happen. But as it stands, that's one of the bigger things I'm concerned about as we go forward, that we could get a pattern that favors jet stream motion doing like this for a lot of winter. So that's a lot of Ohio River Valley systems. This may mean more mild days punctuated by big shots at cold air when this gets let out, because it will, okay? So that's the overall setup that I'm seeing. I do not anticipate winter drought development for the Carolinas. I just want to make that statement. I do not anticipate. If that changes, I will, of course, let you know. So that's just a new piece to this. After we see the La Nina fade, what might take over? Okay, from here, a bit on South America. Latest root zone soil moisture map shows us the issues that are being had down in Argentina. And you can see that things up near like Santa Fe at the mouth, well, the part of the Paraná River that comes into Argentina, and then the mouth of it, which goes through parts of Buenos Aires, very dry through the whole region. This is most of Argentina's main ag areas. Now, over the weekend, there was some precip. Notice here, missed Buenos Aires, missed near Cordoba, and missed the Paraná River, which runs right there. But some places did pick up, you know. This is 30 millimeters is about an inch. So some places saw between a ½ inch and an inch of precipitation, which is good. They needed it. But the issue is that going forward, the next week is dry. Very dry throughout much of Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, southern Brazil, and then Argentina. The range you see here coming into southern Buenos Aires, which is this province here under the cursor, that is, next Tuesday, Wednesday, so there's still a lot of uncertainty with it. So these drought issues during planting continue to crop up here in Argentina. And just to give you one more perspective on it, everywhere they grow soybeans in Argentina, which is most of their growing districts that I just pointed out, if normal accumulated rainfall follows this line, all of the forecast members in the GFS are predicting below normal precipitation for the next 15 days. So we're just continuing to see drought develop there, and it's going to continue to be a story going forward. All right, I appreciate your attention. I'm going to wrap it up there. Have a good week, and we'll talk again next Monday. Thanks.